So let's kick it off. So, for those of you who don't know me or who haven't seen my face, my name is Karen Stone. I am a realtor selling in Park City, and I'm also licensed in New York, and I sell in New York City. I think that that gives me a little bit of an advantage because I do get exposed. I am exposed on a regular basis to what's going on both in New York and here in Park City, which are extremely different markets. But for those who don't know on a macro level, generally what happens on the East Coast tends to go East Coast, West Coast, and then it feeds directly into the middle of the country. So the more I know about what's going on in New York, the better I can kind of predict what might be going on or what might happen here in Park City. So for the purposes of tonight, obviously there's a lot of talk right now about the real estate market, about the general economy. I'm going to do my best to dive in on the most important parts of what's going on a macro level, and then we will go into the micro and local market. Again, my goal is to stay in my lane and not talk out of kind of the context of what I understand and what I know. You might know things at a higher level than me, and I'm totally happy to be a student as well. But I will tell you that I have been a student for hours and hours in the last several weeks, just trying to decipher what's going on, who's running the show, and how this impacts us. So here is my presentation. Can somebody just give me a little bit of a nod or a hands up if you can see my presentation? I just want to make sure that you could see the PowerPoint. David, I see your face. Can you just raise your hand if you could? Okay, wonderful. All right. So again, we are going over the macro, the micro. We'll be talking about tariffs, interest rates, the local market dynamics, etc. We're going to go in that order. All right. So I want to go into a little bit of history first. I'm not going to dive into this too deep, but I think we need to understand the historical trends to better understand where we are today. Um, I started selling real estate in March of 2008 in New York City. What that means is I missed the boom of the market and I got in just in time for the crash. But what we know is that everything that's been going on kind of before then and since then has been directly impacted by multiple influences. So we saw this very low rates fueled by lending frenzy. We saw, the subprime loans and investor speculation that inflated the home prices dramatically. If you were part of that trend and you got in at that time, then you were very lucky. But also, we know that 2007 was like the peak until 2008, when we know what happened. That was the recession, and home values fell about 20% nationally. Park City alone saw about a 40 plus or so percent sales drop, especially in the luxury properties. And since then, about 2012 to 2019, we were in a recovery. The recoveries and recessions tend to historically they tend to hit about every 7 to 10 years. So you would have expected that we would have been in another correction. I don't want to call it a recession, but another correction in about 2018, 2019. I have talked with multiple economists and just people that I rely on for information, and many have said that yes, we were headed towards something happening in late 2018, 19. I personally was in the process of selling my own apartment in New York City. I saw this happening in real time. And I don't want to say that we were saved by COVID, but it was because of the pandemic that we had these low rates. We had this unprecedented demand as a nation, as a country. People were fleeing towards a lifestyle. Money was really cheap. There was a lot of money being put into the economy as a stimulus. And then all of a sudden that got turned off in 2022. For those of you that I ran comps for, you saw the market pretty much shift as soon as the Feds increased the interest rates almost overnight. What they did was they said, we don't need that stimulus anymore. And I'm really kind of dumbing this down, but we don't need this anymore. Now we've got this problem of inflation. Home values have gone through the roof. Money has been so cheap. Let's pull this back a little bit. So since then, we've kind of been in this corrective state. And if you want to look at literally what's happened in the last 3 weeks, many would say this is like a disruption to the correction. But we are still kind of due for some kind of correction. We just don't know what that will be and what form. Um, from a housing market standpoint, and I'm going to share some charts later, but we see that the overall interest rates for mortgages are hovering around that 6.72. I'll show you what the rates were as of today. Many are predicting that the national average of appreciation will be around 3 to 5% this year. I urge you to really consider when you're looking at these numbers exactly who the source is. For instance, Zillow came out with a report that says that they expect home values to go down 1% this year. Zillow, unfortunately, does not have access to, at least us in parks in Utah, they don't have access to our closed numbers. So they're making some general assessments here. And so you really do have to focus on who is the source, how reliable is the source. And obviously, these are all predictions. Nobody has a crystal ball, at least mine broke on the way to this meeting. And we are in a very different position compared to where we were, where we have been, where we were very, very, very short on inventory. We were lacking inventory across the board, from affordable housing all the way to housing that the luxury buyer wants as well. So everything in between. So we have been thankfully seeing inventory grow, which is phenomenal. However, we still are under where we should be based on the overall demand. Today, Lawrence Yun, who's the chief economist and the senior vice president of the National Association of Realtors, if you're not following him, I encourage you to follow him on social media or follow NAR if you can. And he said, again, this came out today, despite the stubborn elevated mortgage rates, new home sales rose 7% in March from a month ago and are up 6% from a year ago. A wide inventory availability at 8 months supply is helping new constructed home sales to move forward. The median price of newly constructed homes was 403,000. I'm sure we all wish we could pay that price, but that was well below the $435,000 price of 3 years ago when builders were constructing large size homes. So that seems to be pretty positive right now. Meanwhile, existing homeowner sales have struggled the past 2 years due to historic low inventory levels. So as we're looking at the overall market, what we need to look at is what is new, what is resale. Mortgage applications, this is also very important, to purchase homes are up 4.3% year to date, even though an application does not mean an approval or a decision to enter the market. But these are just the indicators that they have to look at. Obviously, if when people go to apply for a loan, they often do so with the intent to buy. So as we see that number trending up, that is obviously a very good sign for those of us who are considering selling. And I want to be sensitive to the fact that there are people in this Zoom room who are not planning on selling, who might be thinking of selling, who might be thinking of buying. So I'm here to kind of just give you an overall understanding of what's going on, and we can talk about where you might be if you would like. I'm going to mute somebody. Okay, so the next slide. These are the current mortgage rates as of pretty much as of today or as of yesterday. So we see that the 30-year conforming rate is at 6.828 and the 30-year jumbo is at 7.160. Last week, we know that there were definitely some influences, including President Trump suggesting that he might fire Jerome Powell. We saw a lot of things happen last week, hence the spike. The spike basically means we're not very confident. So we got a little bit more confident, and as you can see before that spike, rates had been relatively stable. Um, and so what the general consumer is looking for is some kind of certainty and stability. And so these rates are directly impacted by the 10-year Treasury bond. Now, we also need to talk about what could happen to the interest rates and what the Fed is predicted to do. So this is a chart. I wrote some notes down here down below, but what this means, I hope that you could see it, but on that top row, on the on the left column, those are the meeting dates for the Fed. So the next one is May 7th. And on the very top column is where we are today. So right now we're at about a 4.25 to 4.5. What that blue number that's 94% means is that there is a 94% chance that the feds are going to hold that rate at the somewhere between the 4.25 and 4.5 during that meeting. And then as we can see in June 18th, there's a 55% chance that they will drop the rate by about 1/4%. Now, this changes daily. I track this weekly. So, I want you to kind of be aware of what this number is and where they're predicting these rates to go. Now, obviously, this number can change, right? And when I'm in some of my meetings on a weekly basis, like sometimes some of like the column on the right has not been there yet with the 450 to 475. So what they're predicting is, as you can see, between now and December, they're predicting about 3 to 4 drops or decreases, but we'll see how those numbers kind of play out. But what's most important for you, at least in the short term, is there's about a 94% chance that nothing's going to happen to those federal to the rates in the next meeting. To talk about tariffs are obviously something very important that we all need to know about. How they're going to impact, how greatly they're going to impact us. I think that is definitely a moving target at this point. But what we do know is that the more expensive it is for lumber and for steel and the actual goods that go into building a home, this will directly impact home buyers and home sellers. With those who are building new construction and developments, probably having is even though they're probably going to have some huge expenses, many of them have already purchased a lot of this lumber. For instance, Ivory Homes buys the lumber about 4 years before they need it. So they're obviously not going to feel as much pain as the individual homeowner who might need to redo their home, redo parts of it, build from scratch, say in like the promontory area. So we just have to accommodate for that, and assume that if you are or have done renovations to your home and you're hoping to get money out of it, right? Like maybe you did it about a year ago, you might not get that money out of it because of all those other influences. And you have to also factor in that if your home does need some renovations, it could cost the buyer more money to do. So not only are they paying a slightly higher interest rate, but now it's going to cost them more for those goods. So we have to factor that in as well. The next chart is consumer confidence. For those of you who know Rick Klein, Rick is a mortgage broker here in town with Wells Fargo, and he is also a writer with the Follies. So I was just in the Park City Board of Realtor meeting last week, and he shared this chart with us. And as you can see, consumer confidence has fallen for the last 4 months. I think we understand for obvious reasons. With people with very fuzzy expectations for the next 6 months. And expectations regarding the stock market turned negative for the first time since the end of COVID. This was before the tariff, as he quoted, tariff wars. So it's very obvious that the general consumer as a whole, I would, again, I want to stay in my lane, but this shows that there is some lack of confidence. Let's talk about the luxury market because that is where we are here in Park City. So, yes, you might have been one of those people who lost some money, a lot of money in the last few weeks. So, the stock market is extremely volatile right now. What we do have is if you own your home, you are sitting on relatively a safe haven. Your home did not decrease that much in value, if at all, in the last few weeks. So people are turning to, taking assets out of the market. If they haven't already done so, they might be looking at taking some of those assets out, putting it into cash, and possibly buying. So that we have to remember that is a pool of buyers that either they did it before, even before January 20th. They did it in preparation for a purchase. I always suggest that if you're considering buying, like, get out of the stock market, especially in days like today. Like we can't, well, today was actually a pretty okay day, but over the last few weeks, we've seen huge fluctuations. So many people are starting to turn to real estate and adding that to their portfolios. And as you can see there in point number 3, real estate makes up just about 18.7% of the higher net worth portfolios, their portfolios, which is down from 20%. However, the affluent foreign buyers are returning to high-end US properties. I do have confirmation of that from or at least an anecdote from one of the top agents in New York City, who told me that she actually had a lot of people calling her right after the election,
Gracias. Yeah, can I
international
get
buyer.
two ceviche tostadas, please?
Yes,
Thank
please
you, ma'am.
share. Okay, just gonna mute people here. Um, yeah, so will we feel that here in Park City? Not necessarily, but I do think that we will feel and we'll start and we can track exactly where some of those numbers are, in terms of who's buying and what they're buying. Um, I want to talk about recession because we have to talk about that word just because lots of people are using the word. I love this chart. This is from a source I use called Keeping Current Matters. And this shows what has happened to home prices and values in the last 6 recessions. And as we can see, only in 1991 and obviously in 2008 did home values go down. We know that in 2008 it was pretty much caused by lenders, right? So we know that was the catalyst. Some stats that I recently learned was that about the average homeowner has a loan to value ratio at about 47%. What that means is that the average homeowner has so much equity in their home that there are very, very few. In fact, from the same person, we're talking single digits numbers on a macro level of homeowners who are in distress, single digit percentages. So we have more homeowners who have equity. They're not going to be selling like fire sales. If you're looking for a housing crash or waiting for a crash to happen, it is unlikely to happen. However, the biggest question is what will lead to this next recession. And again, I want to go back to what I initially said of like every 7 to 10 years we see a correction. We will see a correction. The question is how big and what will be impacted the most. Okay. want to open it up if there are any questions. I see David said I was able to refinance in 2020 to 1.99%. Yes, because money was so cheap. Yeah, I think when I bought, I got about a 2.875. So it's wild to think about what these rates were back then. But as I said, and and I shared with you that I came from New York. Those numbers were never supposed to be that low for that long, right? Like it's just not sustainable. And the growth that we saw in 2020 and 2021 was also not sustainable. So it's just logical that something had to shift. And now we are feeling the lack of a stimulus, the lack of suppression and artificial suppression, or people moving for lifestyle maybe 3 or 5 years earlier than they were. At least in the Park City market, what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is like some people bought land just in, say, Promontory, just to get access to the golf club, right? And then they decided, oh, it's going to take us too long to build, or I'm going to have to wait too many years to actually get the membership. So, you know what? It's time for me to move back to wherever I came from. So I think we do have to really think about who's coming to Park City and who's leaving. And we do know that there are people leaving for obvious reasons. Let's jump back into the overall Park City market. Okay, so as I promised, these are quarterly stats. So I want to bring to your attention some numbers here that really stand out to me. That first row right there, that single family homes, and we compare quarter over quarter. Please keep in mind that the first quarter does tend to be the slowest, the quietest. It's seasonally, it just is what it is, right? Because of snow, because of just general seasonality, we don't see as much action during the first quarter. So we saw a total number of 194 homes sold in Summit and Wasatch counties only. I will be breaking this down more because we do have to figure what is new construction and what is not, and what areas are hotter and what's not. But overall, we see here single family homes for the quarter. The average price was up 21% and the median was up 17%. Clearly, no signs of any kind of like reduction or fire sales. But on a year-to-year basis, year-over-year basis, we are relatively flat. Yes, we had more inventory, but again, we have to look at exactly where that inventory was. And what we do know is a lot of those single family homes are in new developments such as Silver Creek Village, as well as around the Jordanelle in general. Condominiums, we did see about the same number of units sold overall, only about a 5% change, but the average price went up 63% and the median was up 27%. Again, we have to factor in a lot of that was Silver Creek Village and around Deer Valley. And and I will be showing you a chart that shows exactly how these numbers, where these numbers came from. Year over year, we don't see as drastic of an increase, with a 9% increase in the average price and a 1% in the overall median, and land about the same, at a 7% year over year increase in the average, but a 4% decrease in the median. So those are just some interesting stats to share, but they don't tell the whole story. And I know that the Park City Board of Realtors is still working on their press release, which as soon as I get it, I will send that to you. Another chart from Rick Klein. This one shows demand in general. So I love this chart because it goes all the way back to 2005. And if you look at this, we start at, let's say, 2008, and if that was the recession, and we saw the obvious impacts in 2009 and early 2009, since about 2012, 13, we saw a relatively stable, normal market. Then COVID hit And we had to get back to some kind of norm. We had to figure out where the norm was going to be. And as you can see in 23, 24, and 25, we have started to get back to those normal levels. If you can't see it, the purplish color is condos, the red is single family homes, and the yellow is land. So as you can see in 2021, this is where we saw a huge amount of land for sale. Think about all those lots that are in Promontory. Many of them have been built. Many of them have hit the market again. So there was just a lot of land, and those were those people who said, I'm going to move to Park City and I'm going to build a house. But what's most important here is like the demand and the number of transactions, as you can see as the metric on the left, tends to be fairly predictable. And that's what I think we need to, that was the overall message of the meeting within the Park City Board. Everybody was like, this is kind of boring. Like it's pretty much predictable. It's very seasonal and there's nothing really new here. So if we're looking for headlines, I'm sorry, but if it bleeds, it leads. We did not see any blood in the water. This next chart is about the is the overall supply and the inventory. This is very important to look at because this just if you look at this chart year over year, we're not too far off. We had on April 1st, we had 789 listings compared to 783. So back in 2024. So very, very little there. But if you look at where we were before, you see that we are down. We are down and we're down about 30%. And when you factor in how much of that is new construction, we're down even more. So this chart shows active inventory in Greater Park City and all inventory, resale, new development, condos, and vacant land. The next is the absorption rate. So this again shows how much inventory we have in Park City in general. And the absorption rate says if no homes were listed after today, let's just say, how long would it take to sell all of the inventory that's currently on the market? So as of March of 25, the absorption rate for Park City single family and condos was 5.3 months. So that means it would take 5.3 months to sell. Normal in 2013 through 19 was 7.2 months. So we do see that we're selling them at a faster rate. The NAR average as of February of 25 was 3.5 months. And again, this number greatly varies. And if anybody wants to go through these charts, Rick was so great. He actually broke it out by area. So, areas 1 through 9, which is basically everything from the McPolin Barn to the south, Snyderville Basin, Heber, and Camas, single family and condo. So there's a lot of data there as well. And I will send those charts at a later time. This chart shows Greater Park City monthly prices and number of sales. So again, this is just, as of January, but if you're looking at this overall chart, what we see here is, 2005 through 2008, we see the subprime. The red is the number sold and the blue is the median price. What I want to point out here with the red, which is the number sold, is again, like this is relatively stable. We're seeing trends year over year. What that says is this is a pretty solid place to buy. And the median prices, the trend is they continue to go up. Now we do see right there at the very right that we are like something's going on here. And I think we're only seeing that right now because, we're kind of like zoomed in on that, but will that number continue to go down or will it go up? Remember, right as of right now, we're not dealing with a lot of homes to compare or to in our inventory. And some of them are extreme outliers, for instance, like all the properties up at Marcella, right? So those prices are obviously very high. So I am going to break those down. So for now, I want to stop that share. Want to take a second here, see if anybody has any questions. Any questions? Okay. So, the next thing that I want to share is, okay. These are this is the Park City Board of Realtors. This is our stats page. This is where we can literally dive into any community, any property type, new construction, not new construction. We can see exactly what's happening with buyers, how they're financing, if they're cash or conventional. But before I take out any of or add any filters, I want to show you that the median price of a single of across the board in Park City proper, again, that is south of the McPolin barn, is for $4 million. And that number went up 91% compared to last year. That's a huge number. And obviously, that's a headline that you'll probably see in the news, but that does not explain it all. So let's break it out by property type. Okay, so this top one is single family homes. Let me kind of just zoom in here. So single family homes, we see that the median sales price was 5.4. The condos multi-unit is 3.98, and the where's the other one? Condo multi, no, I'm missing one. There we go. Condo townhouse. Sorry. Condo townhouse at about 4.9. Again, a lot of these are skewed because we are talking the most expensive parts of town. Now, I want to break this down by new construction and not new construction. So right now we have both of them checked off. So I want to show you exactly what happens if we take out new construction. We see that that number goes down to 3.831. And if it's only new construction, it goes up to 4.2. So that's obviously a big number. I do not have Snyder. Let's uncheck that and show you Snyderville Basin. Oops, sorry, not Snow Basin, Snyderville Basin, which does include the colony as well as Promontory. So new construction, again, this is all types. Let's go just to single family. Single family, the median sales price, that seems a little bit off. Oh, again, this is just new construction. So if that's at 1.2, let's assume where a lot of that new construction single family homes are, a lot of those, at least in this price range, are around the Discovery Ridge part of Pinebrook. Sorry, show features. Let me see if that changes at all. No. And then let's go to all. If we take out new construction, that number goes up. So the point here that I'm trying to make is like you can't just solely look at the overall numbers. I do want to talk about closed sales because I think that that is extremely important that we look at some of these areas. So closed sales, overall 44 closed sales of resale, and 47 that included new construction. Now I want to change that out again, just to the Park City limits. That's at 50 total. And if we just focus on the resale, it's down to 37. Are there any areas in particular that anybody here wants to ask about or wants me to run some numbers? Feel free to drop them in the chat. I want to show also who's purchasing and how they're purchasing. So cash deals in Park City and in Snyderville, 59, and finance deals, 33. Again, 59 cash, 33 has some kind of loan. Yeah, so 33. Okay, let's see. Upper Pinebrook resale. Okay, I will just pull Pinebrook. I can't exactly pull Upper Pinebrook just right now, just from this chart. So I will pull Snyderville and I will pull only Pinebrook. And okay, so two two sales. Let's look at the median price. Again, this is really hard to pull this number, right? Because there were only two, but let's pull maybe year to date. Let's zoom in. So we see that that number, as expected, went up, but that number still has not come down to, to pre-COVID levels yet. So we're still high by about 600,000. We're about higher, 600,000 higher. I see somebody asked for Summit Park. Summit Park. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oops, I'm sorry. You know what? I'll run those numbers again for Pinebrook because I did not have cash pulled. So just resale there. Median sales price for the year. We do see that that continues to go up. However, let's look to see at what the closed sales were. 3. So my opinion and that of the board is also, if there are less than 10, that does not make a market, which for those of you that I ran comps for, this is where I get extremely frustrated when the assessor's office says, well, here's the price per square foot for 3 homes. And so therefore your home should be compared accordingly. So I disagree with that extremely. Let me go back to Pinebrook there since I did not have all of those. So 10 homes sold. Let me pull this. Okay, so 10 homes. We do have quite a few other options and a variety of options. So if you want me to pick any in particular, please let me know what the category is. And the median sales price, gratefully, we're at 10, but the median sales price for a single family home is at around $2 million. Okay, Deer Mountain resale. Let's shoot over there. I wish I knew some of my numbers here. I don't know all my numbers. That would be Jordan now. Deer Mountain resale. Okay, so median price of a single family home, $6.1 million. This I'm just showing year over year. So you, if you want to see quarterly, I'm going back all the way here to 2019. So you just have to factor in here that a lot of these homes were built in the last few years. So that's why we see this number so high at six. Sorry, it froze on me. There we go. At about the 6 million, but the number of sales, there were 9 in the last year over year as of now. Let's shoot over to Silver Springs. Somebody asked for Silver Springs. Okay, again, year over year, 5 sales. 5 sales. So again, I want to share with you that if you are buying, if you're in the market to buy right now and you see maybe 2 listings in Silver Springs, right? And you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, the inventory is going to go up a lot." This is the number that we're targeting in terms of closed sales. Now, obviously that's not active inventory and I'll pull that for you, but if you're looking like maybe there will be 15 closed sales, we have to think logically here. Like, will we actually hit that number? So that's the number of closed sales. The median price for those closed sales for a single family home was at 2.337 million. I want to look at the active inventory just to give you some idea of that. Oh, and then there was also one other stat that I wanted to give you.
Julie can pull all that stuff for us.
I just heard somebody talking. Whoever that was, do you mind just muting yourself? Okay. Active inventory, let's go monthly. Let me go property type, just no breakout. So as you could see, there's in Silver Springs, according to this, there's only one. I know that there are a couple that just hit though, so we might be a little bit delayed here, but this was as of March. The other thing that I wanted to show, and I'm going to pull off the filters here, and just pull. I don't want Jordan now, and I want Park City. Whoops. Select all. Select none. Snyderville and Park City limits. I want to show you the general discounts. A lot of people have been asking how close to the ask price are you getting? So percentage from list price received. Let's look at that. So overall, if you are considering selling and you're thinking, I want to test the market, or you're looking at buying and you're saying, I want to make an offer at this, 10% under. Overall, we're seeing that homes are only selling for about a 2.5% discount. And again, this is all of Park City proper as well as Snyderville Basin. From the original price, let's see if that's any different. From the original price, they're getting 94%. Okay, that's a little bit harder of a stat to factor in. But as you can see here, most homes, if you're not selling within, let's just say that absorption rate is at that 5% or 5 months, I'm sorry, and I'm going to pull that here, and you're not seeing that your home is selling, and you're dropping it and dropping it and dropping it, what that says to me is your price is too high. Your price is too high. Absorption rate. I don't really know. Let's see. No, none. Let's see, quarterly. Am I getting anywhere? All right. I'm not sure how to use this chart exactly. Okay. What other questions? I think I ran all of them. The stats I see recently is around 95% of original asking price. Is that what the data is saying? Yes, that's exactly what the data is saying. It's saying that homes are selling at maybe a 5% discount. But again, I just pulled all areas. So you really have to look at, and this is a really important thing to note. I was just looking with a client a few weeks ago at single family homes, 4 bedrooms, under $2 million in the Park City School District. There were 8 properties, 8. And now I get it. We're at the end of winter. We're at the beginning of the overall spring market. But 8 homes, can you imagine what's happening there? If anything is sitting right now, if anything is sitting, it's probably overpriced. And those that are getting, and then there was one that was in Pinebrook that had multiple bids with an escalation clause at around 1.4, 1.5-ish. So that went well over as well. So we really have to look at exactly what the supply and demand is. But what we do know is the Park City School District, like that is a certain kind of buyer. It's very different from the investor condo, I want to Airbnb it. Right. So if you are curious about a specific sector, like I'm happy to run these these numbers for you. And that's really the only way to really make informed decisions. Somebody else was asking me, it's an investor from Connecticut. He's looking for a second home in Old Town. He says, Karen, they're flying. Like I don't even have a chance. Like I barely get the MLS listing and it's already sold. Well, there's obvious reasons for that too. Walk to the mountain. We know that there's a lot happening in all of those parking lots in Deer Valley as well as in the canyons. So anything that's right there, like that's I can walk to the slopes, those will always hold their value, right? Because that's not going anywhere. We did also talk about Sundance. How will Sundance impact, or the lack of Sundance impact the market? It's a little too soon to tell. But we do know that a lot of money, a lot of people, there was just so much money that came into the overall Park City market. It has its pros and cons, and I'm not going to go there on this call, but hopefully we are able to add, something to in its place. Let me go back to my presentation. As questions come in, please feel free to ask. Here are some suggestions that I have for you. So sellers, if you have to price strategically right now with so much uncertainty, I feel like this is not a market where you should be testing. Obviously, you can test, but by working with an agent, I promise you that if they promise you a certain price and the stats and the comps don't necessarily support it, assume that they're just there to buy the listing. I can tell you multiple circumstances where I went on listing presentations and I did not get the listing because I gave a lower price. And in both cases, one actually sat for a year at $2 million over where it should have been, and they ended up selling exactly in the range that I told them. That was listed at around 7.5, sold for 5.5. And one is actually currently on the market. He priced it according to the comps about $200,000 over where it should have been. And he just dropped it 100,000 just yesterday. So clearly I'm thankful that he's at least listening to the market, but this is not the market to be testing. You should be highlighting modern upgrades and energy efficiency with the price of insurance going up, energy going up, and obviously the cost of some of these materials going up. You should highlight those things and prepare for more negotiation than you have in previous years. Again, assume that, you have to look at the supply and demand. Buyers, consider condos that might be sitting on the market for a little bit longer, especially some townhouses. Like say you're looking for a single family home with a huge backyard. Maybe you end up buying a townhouse with a smaller backyard, but you at least get the room count that you need. We don't have a lot of them, but look for some stale listings with negotiation potential. These again are those homeowners who are choosing to sell, and maybe they're just letting their home sit on the market. And this is a market where homeowners simply don't have to sell. It's more of a want than a need in general, buyers and sellers. So what I see is a lot of people just kind of take their time unless they're really, really active and really need to move. And buyers should budget for higher financing costs and possible renovations. If you're thinking, what should I be doing to upgrade my home? If you have ways of getting some of these materials at a discounted price, add some modern finishes, even if that's, painting your older cabinets and adding some new hardware. That stuff all matters. Obviously do it with somebody who's licensed and get the proper permitting. Also add some energy efficient improvements. And of course, anything with outdoor living spaces is still ideal. And investors, watch for condo bargains with rental appeal, consider fixer uppers in prime locations, and evaluate long-term appreciation over short-term costs. I want to end, and then I'll go to questions with some final thoughts. These were directly from Rick Klein, and I'm just going to read this for those of you who might not be able to read it. The heartbeat of Park City's real estate market remains steady. Year over year, pending sales are up 4%, and closed Closed transaction rose 15% in Greater Park City. That said, Q1 pended sales, so those were sales that listings that went under contract, took a 15% dip. However, one quarter does not make a trend. And for those wondering, when will we know if we're in a recession or not? That's 2 consecutive quarters of a decrease in the GDP. So this is a flicker on the radar that's worth watching. Global economic uncertainty and tariff tremors may yet shake the wealth effect that fuels the Park City discretionary buyers. On the supply side, the story is one of equilibrium with a twist. Total active listings at the end of Q1 are nearly identical. However, if you zoom in, you will see that single family listings are up 30%, while vacant land listings tumbled 29%. And since the pandemic's retreat, inventory levels have settled into a new normal, which I showed you, but is still about 1/3 below the averages of the past decade. So we were once in a fire hose, and now it's kind of just a well-regulated faucet. Overall, prices continue to climb. Condo and single family home appreciation hit about 8.6% in the Greater Park City area in the last year, which is double the national average, which again, for anybody who's considering buying here in Park City, what that says is we are still a safe place to buy. It's a safe bet. People are moving here for their lifestyle, and for work needs, obviously. But you do have to look at the overall zip code. In Snyderville Basin, the median condo prices surged. However, we do know that that is existing versus resale is existing versus new construction. Sorry, it cut off there. Is a tale of entirely 2 cities. And looking ahead, nobody really knows where we're headed. There's a lot of uncertainty. So we've got to look at the short term, long term, and what the president and what the Fed decides to do. So hopefully you found that helpful.